Hello everyone. Today we are here having a forum discussing alternative and renewable energy. I'm the moderator of this forum, Yuk Cheong, and here are the three panelists which will be here to discussing this topic. Here's Wei Zhen, Isaac, and Shen Kai. So, before we start, allow me to define what is renewable and alternative energy. Renewable energy is energy that can regenerate itself infinitely. Alternative energy is energy source that is an alternative using of fossil fuels and have low carbon emission to the environment. So, let us start our first argument. Some countries have been developing nuclear power plant to generate electricity to reduce the dependence on fossil fuel. Nuclear power uses nuclear reaction to release nuclear energy and has been used to discuss in recent years as a possible solution for energy crisis. So, do you all think that nuclear energy is a solution to energy crisis, and why?
No, in my opinion. It is because extensive usage of nuclear energy will cause serious radioactive waste disposal issue. For instance, a nuclear power plant creates approximately 20 metric tons of nuclear fuels per year. The major part of the waste transmits radiation at high temperature. It can also cause damage to living things in and around the plants. A lot of low-level radioactive waste will be created as well. Although used nuclear fuels decays to save radioactive levels over time, however, this takes countless numbers of years. Even low-level radioactive waste takes hundreds of years to achieve adequate levels of safety.
I fully agree with your thought. I think that nuclear energy is a solution to energy crisis because it's more proficient than fossil fuel. A number of nuclear energy innovations have made it much more feasible choice than others. They have high energy density and as compared to fossil fuel, the amount of fuel required by nuclear plant is comparatively less than what is required by power plants, as the energy released by nuclear fission is approximately 10 million times greater than the amount of energy released by fossil fuel atom. Plus, carbon emissions from the nuclear power are significantly less than a coal power plant. This means that it will not pollute the environment with greenhouse gases.
Yes, Wei Zhen is right. Besides that, the nuclear power produces very inexpensive electricity. The cost of uranium, which is utilized as a fuel for this process, is low. Also, even though the expenses of setting up the nuclear power plants is quite moderately high, but the expenses of running them is relatively low. For the normal life of the nuclear reactor is anywhere between 40 to 60 years, depending how often it is used and how it is used. So these variables, when consolidated, makes the expenses of the delivering power very low. Even if the cost of uranium goes up, the impact on the cost of power will not be that significant.
But please keep in mind that radioactive waste produced can pose serious health effects on the lives of people as well as the environment. The Chernobyl accident that occurred on 26th of April in 1986 at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Ukraine was the worst nuclear accident in history. Its harmful effects on humans and ecology can still be seen today. There was another incident that happened in Fukushima in Japan. Although the casualties were not that high, it caused serious environmental concerns.
However, it has also been determined that the amount of greenhouse gases has been decreased by almost half because of the prevalence of the utilization of the nuclear power. Nuclear energy has at the least effect on the nature since it does not discharge any greenhouse gases such as methane and carbon dioxide, which are the primary greenhouse gases. There is also no unfavorable impact on water, land, or any territories.
Yes, although nuclear energy is not considered as a renewable sources, uranium, the nuclear fuel that is used to produce nuclear energy, is limited and can be produced again and again on demand. But by using breeder and fusion reactors, we can produce other fissionable elements. Also, if we know how to control atomic fusion, the same reaction that fuels the sun, we can almost have unlimited energy, as is called nuclear fission.
Okay, now I would like to ask, do you all think that renewable energy, including nuclear energy, can completely replace fossil fuels in the future?
Yes, of course. Non-renewable sources are limited, non-environmental friendly, and the supply is not stable and constantly fluctuating. So the renewable sources, on the other hand, they are renewable, sustainable, abundant, and most importantly, they are environmental friendly. There are a lot of countries and corporates has invested a substantial amount of money to develop and to build a network of infrastructure to generate energy, especially electricity, from renewable energy sources and distribute them to the consumers.
Shunkai, can you give an example to support your point?
Oh, okay. For example, Iceland generates the cleanest electricity per person on Earth, with almost 100% of their energy coming from the renewable sources. It is now they derive all of their energy from for electricity and home heating from geothermal and hydropower.
Well, I'm sorry, but I have to disagree with you, Shankai. Until now, wind and solar can only still produce 5.5% of world electricity. Although hydropower is a much more significant source of renewable energy, but its costs are rising and investment is dropping. It costs a lot to develop renewable energy stations in both researching and manufacturing the components needed for them to be successful. The known ways of using fossil fuel are less costly because of all the manufacturing and construction processes already in place. Other costs of renewable energy are that to produce a large amount of energy, a large number of solar panels and wind farms have to be set up. For this, large areas of lands are needed to produce such a massive amount of energy on a large scale.
Well, I think I will have to agree with Shankai. Any increase or decrease in the supply of fossil fuels has a direct result on inflation. Cost of producing energy from renewable energy sources is dependent on the amount of money that has been spent on the infrastructure and not on the equitable cost of natural resource, which clearly means we can expect much more stable prices when the bulk of energy is coming from renewable sources. This is great from a business standpoint as well as to general consumers.
Yes, as the sun always rises and the wind always blows, the reliability of renewable energy can far exceed those of the fossil fuels. When the fossil fuel sources run dry, the whole process will just have to be moved. Once in place, many of the renewable energy stations will have constant and permanent source of energy.
Excuse me, sorry to interrupt you. But, however, as a matter of fact, renewable energy sources also depends heavily on the weather, such as the sun, wind, to produce energy. Abundant rain or slow wind can reduce the production of energy, as it is not possible to produce energy in such conditions. We might have to reduce our energy consumption then.
So, I feel that we have very clear that renewable energy has its pros and cons. However, recently there's a lot of vehicle manufacturers has switched their focus to create more environmental friendly cars, namely electric cars, hydrogen fuel cars, and electric cars that are believed to be the solution to reduce carbon emission. Which you think is more practical?
Well, hydrogen fuel cell vehicles or FCV are also considered as an electric vehicle as they are powered fully by electric and have electric motors to drive the vehicle. The major differences between FCV and conventional electric cars are their range and refueling process. FCVs combine hydrogen and oxygen to produce electricity which runs the motors. But the byproducts are only water and heat, which is harmless to the environment. On the other hand, electric cars which run on a battery need to be recharged whenever the battery runs flat, while FCVs just need to refuel the hydrogen, which requires much less time than conventional electric vehicles. Besides that, hydrogen has a higher energy density where less hydrogen is required to power the vehicle. For example, Honda Clarity, which runs on hydrogen, requires only 5.5 kg of hydrogen to have a range of 589 km, while for battery electric cars, to achieve that range, the battery will weigh approximately 500 kg. With that in mind, I think FCV or hydrogen fuel cell cars are a better choice.
Well, from my point of view, I would prefer electric car. This is because of the infrastructure to produce, compress, transport, and sell hydrogen have not been fully developed, and as a new technology, each of these stages costs more than not just the existing electricity infrastructure, also more than the gasoline and diesel. On the other hand, electric vehicles went through their own growth curve, and over the past 10 years, we have seen the cost of the equipment required to charge them continue to come down as the volume goes up. Furthermore, electric car can utilize current grid network to get electricity and have much higher efficiency when compared to FCVs.
Well, I agree with Regent. FCVs are also not as efficient as the battery electric cars, which consume much less energy. Usually, a fuel cell car consumes about 2.4 times more energy than a battery electric car because electrolysis and storage of hydrogen is much less efficient than using the electricity to power the load directly.
Thus, the extraction of hydrogen gas is an obstacle that reduces efficiency of an electric car.
Currently, there are two ways to extract hydrogen gas, which is electrolysis and catalytic reforming from crude oil. However, extracting hydrogen from electrolysis is too costly. In fact, crude oil reforming is currently the most viable method of producing hydrogen fuel, but through this method, we are right back at the square one. As far as the greenhouse gases emission go, in my point of view, FCV is currently impractical until we find a better way to extract hydrogen.
I'm sorry, Shankan. However, on a commercial standpoint, a hydrogen-powered vehicle is much more suitable as hydrogen can be refilled within minutes while having a longer range of driving than battery electric cars without much additional weight.
Although hydrogen vehicle might just take minutes to refill the tank, hydrogen stations will even rarer than the electric ones, which create a paradox in the industry. Companies will only make more hydrogen stations when there's a stable market of hydrogen cars, but auto manufacturers will only sell more hydrogen cars when there are enough demand at fuel station. You can name a lot of battery electric car in the market, but not FCVs.
Okay, now let's put electric car aside and talk about another alternative way to produce renewable sources of energy. As you know, osmosis is a common biological process when water moves from a dilute to a concentrated solution. Research found out that osmosis can also be used in generating power. Do you think that's a possible way in the future as an alternative energy?
Oh, this method is called osmotic power. First of all, the osmotic power plant incorporates two chambers separated by an artificial membrane to store fresh water and stored water. The pressure generated by the transfer of water through the membrane in one direction is used to generate electricity. The pressure in the seawater chamber will be increased as the salt in the seawater draws the fresh water through the membrane. The plant uses hundreds of meters of pipes to channel salt water and fresh water into the power plant. The pressure generated can be used in a driving turbine to generate electricity. The osmotic power plant will not discharge any pollutants to the atmosphere, nor will it affect the seawater or the river habitat.
Well, in a 2012 study on the efficiency from the Yale University concluded that the highest extractable work in the constant pressure PRO or the pressure retarded osmosis with a seawater draw solution and the river water feed solution is 0.75 kilowatt hour per cubic meter, while the the energy of mixing is about 0.81 kilowatt hour per cubic meter, but with a thermodynamic extraction efficiency of 91%.
Well, as far as I can tell, I think this method is quite unrealistic as marine and river environment will experience an obvious difference in water quality. On top of that, the membrane needs to be replaced periodically, approximately for every 5 to 7 years, due to the clogging and degradation of the membrane. The amount of energy needed by this method the amount of energy produced by this method is also very small that it will not even meet the demands of the average domestic energy consumption, which suggests that energy harvested in this way is totally inefficient to us. Furthermore, brackish water will be discharged during this process.
Just now, Wenjun just mentioned about something called brackish water. So can anyone, out of my curiosity and probably the audience curiosity, can someone describe briefly what is it?
Well, brackish water or breakwater is the water with a level of salinity between freshwater and the seawater. Technically, brackish water contains between 0.5 and 30 grams of salt per liter. In many places around the world, brackish water appears naturally and it forms an important habitat for some unique species. For example, mangrove swamp is an example of brackish water habitat.
Okay, however, please do note that it can cause environmental damage as well. Since it is harmful to organisms which have not adapted to it, this becomes an issue when brackish water is deliberately cultivated and as is done in some regions to farm desirable food fish. It is also unpleasant to drink and it can cause health problems.
So that's all of our discussion today. So let me have a conclusion now. I think that nuclear energy is now the most possible way to replace fossil fuel, and it has major advantage of carbon emission. However, we have to figure out an efficient solution to handle the harmful nuclear waste from nuclear power reactors, so that the production of costs can be lowered down and increase the practicability of it. Besides that, although there is a significant development in the field of renewable energy in recent decades, the suggestion about replacing fossil fuel completely with renewable energy is still presumptuous and unrealistic at current stages, as the supply of energy is unstable and limited by its low efficiency compared to fossil fuel. On the other hand, the benefits of hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, limited as extracting hydrogen gas from crude oil, is still not environmental friendly, while electric power vehicles need time to recharge and not suitable for long-range travel. Similarly, the application of osmotic power is still in a debate, as it may cause environmental damage and also produce just a tiny amount of energy, which is clearly insufficient. And thank you, that's all for today.
Wah, 20 minutes.
Wow, something for 25 seconds.